Good morning, Texoma. I'm Ashley Fitzwater. This morning, we're taking an inside look into the Wichita Falls ISD. Tomorrow is the first day of class for many kiddos all across Texoma, so we're going to take a look at how the school district is not only preparing, but also a look at the new chief educator. Joining me now is the new superintendent, Dr. Fassard, and we appreciate you being here with us this morning, and we really just want to have a chance to welcome you, of course, to the community first of all, and have a chance for you to share a little bit more about yourself. So
Thank you.
Can you go ahead and just tell everyone at home a little bit about you and where you came from?
Well, my family and I are coming from Fort Bend ISD, south of Houston. It's the 7th largest district in Texas, and I'm the son of a superintendent myself, born in Colorado, but I've lived all over the country. My mother is actually a Texan. She was from a small town outside of Waco, Meridian, Texas. So, you know, I think in many respects I was always a Texan.
You said you've been in town, I guess, about a month now, right? And
about a month.
Making Wichita Falls your home already.
Well, you know, with the opening of school, I thought it was important to make sure we get off to a good start. So I was hired July 24th. I started that day, lived out of a suitcase, was in a hotel, then was in a home on an air mattress. My family got here recently, and, you know, we're ready to go.
And can you tell us a little bit about your family? I understand you actually have a little one who will be in the WFISD district as well.
Well, yes, we have grown children, but we also have a 7-year-old son, so he'll be in 2nd grade this year. And, you know, everything that I do well or do poorly, I'm sure I'll hear about it at home.
Is he excited as well, I'm sure, to be in a new place?
He's excited to be here, but he's like most young people. He'd like the summer to go on a little bit longer.
Sure.
And, you know, I've spent the last week getting him ready for getting up early again, and he's not enjoying that too much. But,
yeah.
But other than that, he's excited to get back to school.
And you know, that was actually a good tip that we passed along this past week, that was to get those kids ready for back to school, because tomorrow,
Sure.
That early start, oh, it's gonna come early for a lot of people. So, you know, just kind of talking about the future and your passion behind being a superintendent, because like you said, you came from a town kind of near Houston, South Texas. So what made you, was it growing up in a home where your father was a superintendent and seeing those changes that he made? What made you want to step into this position?
Well, it's funny. I'm an unlikely educator. Early in my school career, I wasn't a really good student. I didn't like school. I wasn't an early reader. I tell people, half kidding, that I wasn't in the Bluebirds reading group or the Robins. I was in the Buzzards reading group. But in the 4th grade, I had a really good teacher with very high expectations, and she required me to read 5 books a week. Up to that point, I'd never read one book in its entirety, so I really struggled with that throughout the year. But by the end of the year, I was able to meet her expectations, and by the next year, I was making straight A's in school. So having a good teacher certainly impacted me. It made an impression on me, and at that point, I kind of started looking forward a little bit and decided to follow in my father's footsteps.
You know, you hear that time and time again, it seems, in different careers, in different fields, that it is those teachers that really seem to, you know, give you that push or that drive and make a difference.
Well, I think almost everybody has an example of a teacher that really made a positive difference, and sometimes people have an example of a teacher or a counselor that discouraged them, told them what they couldn't be. But you know, that's one thing I'm trying to instill, that all of our employees, we really have an impact on young people, and we shouldn't minimize that, and use it for good, and to motivate and challenge and make sure we establish high expectations and not write anybody off.
That's definitely good advice, and I'm sure encouraging for, you know, a lot at home to hear this as well. Share with us your goals and your plans for this year, what you would like to see.
Well, I walked into a few budget issues, and I think first we'd like to stabilize the budget. I think it's important for the community to know that we're good fiscal stewards, so we've spent a lot of time working on that. Another thing that often happens when you get new people in, they bring in their own programs, their own ideas. I take a slightly different approach. I like to come in and analyze and listen and learn and see what's working and build on what's working, and then try and identify what isn't working that we can fix and what has never worked that we need to abandon. So I'm not rushing in to make changes. I'm rushing in to listen and learn and get a sense of the community and what we like and what we don't like, and then move from there.
Do you think your father had an impact on that? You know, being able to see things happen and play out, what works, what didn't work?
Well, definitely. I was actually going to school board meetings when I was about 5 years old. He would take me along, and you know, I don't know that at the time any of it registered, but in retrospect it certainly did. And he's certainly given me a lot of advice over the years that I've been able to apply, and I think that's one thing that I've learned. Every situation is different, and so I can't come in with a preconceived set of notions and apply solutions that I know have worked elsewhere. They may or may not work in this situation, and I need to know more about the community before I make those decisions.
All right. Well, we appreciate you kind of giving us a sneak peek into at least some of those plans and your thoughts. We're going to hear much more from the superintendent right after the break, so stay with us. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we are talking about the first day of school in the new school year with the Wichita Falls Independent School District. The new superintendent has been giving us an inside look into his position and where he came from, and sharing a little bit about his family. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about some changes that are going to be taking place this year. You said you walked into this position, of course, budget concerns, and that seems to be a concern all across Texas and, you know, a lot of the nation dealing with budget issues, unfortunately, during this time. So how will the budget and the decisions that have been made affect this school year?
Well, we're trying to protect the classroom as much as possible, so we knew we needed to make a series of budget reductions, and started with central office. I know that it's tempting to start at the classroom, but I feel it's very important to protect the core mission, teaching and learning, as well as school safety. So we started with central office. We're going to do a personnel study at some point during this year, make sure that we benchmark our staffing levels against school districts around the state that are comparable in size, see if we can identify some other savings there. Beyond that, they're just I've surveyed the principals. They've given me feedback on what they think is working, what they think needs to be improved, how they think central office can be more responsive. So I'm analyzing the information they've given me, looking at restructuring central office a little bit to make it more responsive not only to schools but to our community, our parents and students in particular. Any
cuts that have had to be made, though, already, whether it's, you know, to maybe certain positions or just cutting back on things that, you know, maybe people might notice this year?
Well, I'm trying to do it in a way that the parents won't notice. When I first arrived, there were a series of proposals on the table, and many of them did affect the classroom and instructional programs, and some of those are still on the table. I just felt like it wasn't the right time. By the time a decision would have been made on any of those, that would have been August, and that's a little late to be letting parents know that, you know, we may not provide transportation the same way, or we may cut a particular program. So I've asked my staff to study it more thoroughly, bring it back, and we'll examine some of those during the course of the year. But as much as possible, we're trying to protect the classroom, and hopefully you won't see any noticeable changes in terms of budget and funding.
So when it comes to the budget, maybe for people at home, it doesn't have to necessarily all be finalized before the first day of class, right? Correct? Is there a window open?
Well, we're adopting the budget tomorrow night, and what we'll do is amend the budget probably in September. So we'll get our budget passed, but we're still looking at some other potential cuts, and we'll finalize that probably a little bit later.
Coming from another district, is this something that you are noticing every school district having to face budget cuts and budget concerns.
Well, in Fort Bend, we didn't have budget cuts this past year, but the 2 years prior, we had over $20 million we had to cut each year. So I think you've seen significant cuts throughout the state the last few years.
Moving forward, do you just now make plans and put plans in place to hopefully where they're not as harsh if it continues the way it has been?
Well, I think what we're good at in education is adding new programs and new initiatives. We're not always that good at evaluating programs and refining them, or even abandoning programs that aren't working. And what we tend to do over time is add layer after layer of responsibility to teachers to the point where it almost becomes unmanageable. So I hope during the course of this year to take a closer look at some of the programs we've had in place, look at them in terms of effectiveness, and follow a process of what I call organized abandonment for the programs that we need to peel away to make teachers' lives easier and make children's lives better.
Any final thoughts or tips that you would like to leave parents with, or a message to them, you know, as you're coming into this district?
Well, I would say to our young people and to the parents, part of the battle is showing up. So good attendance is very important. And I think another thing that we don't value quite enough in our culture, but they do in many other cultures, is effort. I believe that if you'll make an effort, you'll succeed over a period of time, and effort is definitely undervalued. You know, we put a big premium on natural ability and giftedness and that type of thing, but you know, I know a lot of people over the course of their lives that have outworked people with more talent. Now, if you're blessed to have a lot of natural talent and you're willing to work hard, the sky is really the limit for you. But I would tell anybody, especially somebody that hasn't been successful in school before, put in the time, put in the effort. If you make the effort, you will succeed.
I love it. And I guess this goes back to kind of encouraging them, making that effort, but maybe a lot of discouragement after seeing AYP and use the adequate yearly progress reports. And any advice to parents who, if their child maybe goes to one of the schools who didn't meet those standards?
Well, I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about AYP. The federal standards are almost to the point where virtually all schools will eventually fail. Right now we're starting to reach the threshold where generally accepted schools that have been outstanding for years and years are starting to not meet the standards, because by 2014 we're approaching the 100% threshold for a pass rate. So I would tell individual parents, when you look at your school and evaluate how the school is doing, look at gains. We have a number of examples throughout the district of schools that have had exceptional gains this past year. Wichita Falls High School, Hershey High School, they come to mind, but we have many others. And I would also say, wait until you get your individual report for your child, probably mid-year, and look at those scores and see if you notice improvement.
And just in case people are not aware of the percentages, when you say 100%, you're meaning that 100% of the students, every kid in that school, has to pass in order for the school to be AYP pass rate, correct?
Right, and that's why you're seeing more and more schools and districts struggle with this. You know, I think all of us have high expectations, but sometimes you have to wonder if 100% in every school in every district is attainable.
People would like to compare those gains and take a look at how their school did. Where can they find those reports?
They can go to our district website where we report that data for all of the schools.
Okay, and if you have any trouble locating that, you can of course head to our website, newschannel6now.com. We'll put a link to, again, your website and a phone number as well, so that way you can contact someone just in case you have any trouble locating those numbers. We really appreciate your time, and it was so nice getting to meet you and talk about your family as well. So we definitely wish you the very best this school year and look forward to hearing more from you about future plans with the WFISD. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And stick around. We're actually going to hear from a new assistant principal coming up and how he's preparing for this new school year. It's all after the break on Inside Texoma.